Jennifer Zeller with this month's edition of Tell Me More. Today I have some news I think will help to make your jobs easier. Our board of directors just approved a new form called the Release Termination of Broker Representation Agreement. Since the requirement of the usage of a buyer-broker representation agreement last year, probably one of the biggest questions I've gotten from you is, how do I terminate an agreement if this relationship is not working? And does Dayton Realtors have a form to address this? Well, we heard you. You can now find in your document library a form that does that very thing. You would use this if your representation agreement has not yet expired and/or your brokerage wants to terminate your buyer representation agreement. But we didn't stop there. We also added the ability to terminate an exclusive right to sell contract. Unfortunately, sometimes it's best to walk away from a relationship where one or both of the parties are not happy. And this form gives you written documentation between you and your client to do so. We've also included a handy practice tip guide to help you know the proper way to use the document. There's also a box for other, so this form is very simple yet versatile. If you'd like to end the representation, but otherwise do want post-representation terms and conditions to apply, such as a terminal period, you can simply change the end date for your listing period or agency period and have all parties initial this change. In this circumstance, your representation would end as of the modified date, but all other terms and conditions of that agreement still apply. In this case, you would not use this release termination of broker representation agreement form. Always consult with your broker for specific guidance and/or limitation on your authority to act on behalf of the brokerage. A big thank you to the Forms Committee for their work on creating this document. This should be a benefit to all. Now, for my monthly little tidbit of something you may not know, I want to talk about cold calling for sale by owners. It's no secret that inventory is still a challenge, and you're looking for ways to find those listings. It used to be many agents used cold calling to build business, but with the Do Not Call registry, that changed the rules of cold calling. So this is just a reminder, if you are planning on cold calling for business, keep in mind that there are some very specific guidelines you must follow. Before you do any cold calling, you must first determine if the person you're calling is on the Do Not Call list. There are two instances when a real estate professional would call a FSBO seller. The first would be seeking a FSBO listing, and the second would be a buyer's representative who believes their client might be interested in a FSBO property. A buyer's representative can contact the FSBO owner whose number is listed in the Do Not Call registry about a client's potential interest in the property, as this call is not a telephone solicitation by the buyer's representative. But please be aware that the buyer's representative can only discuss their client's interest in the property and not use a purported client's interest as a way to also discuss the possibility of the FSBO owner listing their property with the buyer's representative. However, an agent would be prohibited from initiating a telephone call to a FSBO seller whose number is listed in the Do Not Call registry in an attempt to obtain a listing. Now, how about calling an expired listing of a client who's on the Do Not Call registry? In this scenario, the established business relationship exemption permits the listing agent as well as other agents from the same company to contact the seller for up to 18 months after the expiration date. For all other agents, the registry must be consulted prior to calling. And finally, you still have time to sign up for our Certified International Property Specialist classes we are holding throughout October. This is a fabulous opportunity to take these hard-to-find classes at a price that makes the classes and certification much more financially feasible than you typically find for this series. Well, that's it for this month's edition of Tell Me More, and we'll see you next month with some new topics to share.